IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
The alco-bev market, or rather the alcoholic beverages market, is unique from an Indian context, not just because of user behavior, but also government restrictions, making this space a market that doesn't conform to many established global trends, but rather a reshaping of them for our context. One key aspect that has emerged in recent times is to bring the bar experience home. And this has also been facilitated by companies that function in the mixers category, in many ways outside the purview of many of those restrictions. And they're helping democratize experiences that were traditionally part of the metro city markets to other tier markets as well, and so much more. One such company is Jimmy's Cocktails, and today I have their founder and CEO, Ankur Bhatia, on Advertising is Dead, to dig into all of this, his experience in the space across e-com as well as alcobev, and so much more. I'm Varun Dugirala, and this is Advertising is Dead. Right back with Ankur.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into A Show About Crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM Podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead with Ankur. I'm glad you're finally doing this, Ankur. I know that you and I spoke a while back and we've finally gotten down to recording this episode.
I'm glad to be here, Varun.
One of the things which I found interesting when we spoke last time is not just the product you're building, but just the thought process in which you're really building it out. So I'd want to first start off by saying, what was it about this category per se that made you look towards it as an opportunity? Just for to look at it from a macro perspective, to understand why this is almost a great space to kind of dig into.
I spent about 8 odd years in the alcohol sector. I used to head marketing for a company called Suntory. We had brands like Yamazaki and Teachers and Jim Beam and so on and so forth. One of the insights that you have when you work in the sector is that you know that 75% of all drinking happens at home, right? It's only about 25% of business from the alcohol segment that happens in the bars you and I visit. Now, a typical bar menu consists of 4 or 5 categories. There is possibly always starts with the cocktail section, moves to the spirits, beers and wines. That's probably it.
Yeah.
Now, cocktail... spirits, wines, and beers are available to you at home, right? And on the other hand, one of the insights I had was that almost 30% of all the revenues that bars were making were coming from cocktails. So there was some reason why when the moment we go to a bar, drinks like even as simple as a mojito or a Long Island iced tea or an old fashioned or more esoteric as the bars go higher up, the names of those drinks become more esoteric. These were impossible to bring at home, right? So why shouldn't this particular section of a bar menu not be coming to home, where when the maximum amount of drinking happens at home, was the first insight we got. Yeah, and that's the...
Okay, so that's an interesting point, right? Because we normally don't look at it from that perspective. Look at the business and think about the fact that, okay, cocktails will be tough to make at home. And I know that a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, have tried to learn how to make cocktails at home, etc. and stuff like that. And when you look at this from a category perspective, and how do you kind of bring that experience? I think a lot of the reasons why people buy cocktails when they go to a bar is because of the experience of the drink, etc. How do you bring that home? And how do you guys kind of start off with that, just to look at it from, hey, how do we create this? How do we package it? I know that packaging has been a core focus for you. And then how do you kind of make sure that experience travels?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost was understanding the biggest insight was that these are complicated drinks to make at home, right? The first time you think of the word cocktail, the moment it comes down, how will I make it? I will have to buy 8-10 things, are they available, not available? What if I just want one drink? Am I going to buy ingredients worth 15, 20 drinks? So there is an inherent sense of complication in it.
Yeah.
So our first endeavor was to simplify it, right? And the level of simplification went in almost everything that we did, from starting from the name. So we could have just called our brand Jimmy's.
Yeah.
We said Jimmy's Cocktail so that, it's very evident for what it is. Then behind the pack, we wrote, I said Spike it Jimmy, which is as simple as, 3 steps for you to make a cocktail. So first and foremost, what we had to crack was, take away the core issue of making a cocktail at home, which is the complexity of it. So I think for us, what people tell me is the simplification of it and your name is probably the reason that you've grown to become the fastest growing mixer brand in India.
And how do you kind of showcase that, especially from a packaging point of view? Because I think one of the things that really stands out about your brand is the fact that when you see the packaging, it distinctly stands out, but also has helped you kind of focus on on a certain kind of TG, focus on the market, and how do you use packaging? And I'm going to this because when we spoke earlier, right before we did the recording, one of the things that stood out for me is just your perspective on how packaging can be a great tool for communicating with your consumer. And I think that's one aspect that we don't talk about enough.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we are very cognizant of, exactly what you mentioned right now, is the last time you saw a cocktail, or let's say a lady saw a Cosmopolitan in the bar, it was presented to her in this beautiful slim martini glass, this pinkish color liquid with a nice lemon garnish, something around it, right? That's your perception of the category. That also led us to actually cover the whole bottle, because we went with that, your imagination or your memory of the last time you saw this cocktail, let's say on media or TV or wherever else, when you're watching Sex and the City movie, right? That is a more potent marketing weapon. Why would I want to not use? So we try to use your own mind, because the latent memory of that cocktail it actually works harder for us. So we don't want to show you the liquid. Just you can imagine yourself. So Jimmy's Cocktails, Cosmopolitan is all that the packaging says. Rest is all in your head already.
And I think that's interesting, right? Because you're saying that you can actually use the packaging to almost help the consumer visualize what it could be and connect to what they had experienced earlier. And did that kind of change, especially when you looked at the kind of audience base you're looking at? Are you looking at a broader audience space? Are you looking at an audience space primarily in the metro space? Does that change if you look at the consumer in that sense of the word?
No, see, since we've launched, while our retail presence is about 25 or top 25 cities right now, we've been delivering from our website, which is jimmyscocktails.com, to over 400 cities. I'm talking about towns with population of less than 20,000, villages in Kerala, where somebody may want to sit on his hammock and have a sex on the beach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So why we thought that this has a deeper opportunity is because in today's world, the access to information is omnipresent. So in the earlier days, only those people will know about a cocktail who are going to the bars.
Yeah.
Now, almost everybody in any part of India. The challenge, however, we saw was that the availability of product stops outside of the top 6-8 cities. So Delhi, your standard Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Calcutta, Pune, right? Right after Chandigarh, right after that, Hyderabad, the availability in the bars itself will stop. So now you have consumers which are equally aspirational, and that's the India story, not for it's any category, right?
Yeah.
More Johnny Walker gets sold in now in tier 2 towns than in even metros. More luxury cars, the growth of luxury cars is higher in tier 2 towns. So that's across all product categories, right? Yeah. So what we knew was that there is a high aspiration, no availability. It's hard enough for people living in South Bombay or South Delhi or South Bangalore, whatever there is, to find all the ingredients to make these drinks. Yeah. It just means that it's somebody in Mysore or Nagpur or Nashik or wherever else. It's going to be just virtually impossible. There's absolutely no way they're going to do it. That's where we come in, where the knowledge or awareness of a mojito or a Bloody Mary or a margarita or any of the cocktails that we make is high, but access is limited, and that's the only thing we do. We make a great product and deliver it. That's it.
So you mentioned the website, and I think D2C is an interesting point of view here, primarily because there would have been an early choice to make, and I'm sure there are multiple reasons why. Either you can go into a ready-to-drink model, where you're saying, okay, let's include the alcohol as well as part of this. You can just kind of purchase it and it has that, which then takes you into the alcohol category. Or are you going to a category where you're a mixer, and in that sense, you need to add your alcohol onto it, which I guess from a regulatory standpoint, multiple other things kind of makes it simpler. So when you kind of made that choice and to move towards this direction, did you also kind of see that if I had to kind of break it down both from how it helped you from a D2C perspective, but also from how it helped you kind of build your product out from like how do you kind of get your first set of consumers in, how do you kind of connect to them, etc.
I'm one of those few. So India, as you know, as from the liquor marketing is a dark market. So that's why you see people marketing soda, bottled water,
Yeah,
or
music CDs, which I still see CDs and I still wonder sometimes, but yeah.
Right, it's because the legality does not allow you to do any marketing for it.
Yeah.
If you look at actually the brands that you're consuming, the alcohol brands, they're still the same brand you were consuming a decade back.
Yeah,
it's still the same Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, Absolute, Grey Goose, Blenders Pride, or whichever. New brands have hardly managed to come. Now there'll be some spillover while great new brands like maybe Greater Than Gin and so on and so forth. But prima facie, the bigger markets, and these are very niche brands, the large volume markets are still the same brand that you were consuming forever. That is only because new brands find it very hard to create awareness. And if you're not able to create awareness, then you're not able to sell. It's that simple. I also came from an e-commerce background. So I had just sold my venture called mensxp.com. Which got acquired by Times Internet. It was an e-commerce venture way back in 2007. And I've always wanted to find a way, how do you bridge a gap between the legalities of alcohol versus the, your ability to reach. So what is D2C? D2C is also, aside from, is your fast ability to reach the wide base that India provides.
Yeah.
Otherwise, in an alcohol way, it'll take Bira the beer. They launched in 2014 or 2015, something like that. They've come into Assam now.
Yeah.
After 9 years or whatever, 8 years, they've come to Assam now, right? Whatever number of years. So for an alcohol brand to sort of build, it takes that much more time and that much more capital. While one of the things we did was, let's look like alcohol, let's behave like alcohol, let's even present ourselves like alcohol, package ourselves like alcohol, let's even ask consumers to consume yourself with alcohol. We will only just not put alcohol in our product. Just the small difference lets us do whatever we want, move very fast, and do everything that Jimmy's just today.
If I had to ask you that from the time you started the company, and I want to come to your journey, right? I want to dig into Men's XP and everything else you've done. But if I had to ask you that from the time you started the company to now, have they been like, if you look at it, saying, okay, you had certain preconceived notions or some early plans of saying this is how the market's going to behave, this is how the consumer's going to behave. What has kind of stayed true to what you thought it would be, and what has actually surprised you and something you have evolved towards for the market?
I think most of the insights have stayed true because the fact that there will be tier 2 adoption. It won't be a Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore phenomena only. There will be consumers who will want to have this. So all that has been spot on. What surprised me more recently is that I found, aside from India, I found that this particular category is not available other than North America, is not available anywhere in the world.
Wow.
If you go to Dubai shelves, there is one brand that gets imported from something called Master of Mixers, which has always been in India also. Right? And we just didn't notice. It was always on the shelves. Right? So there's this one brand that floats around the world and possibly, wasn't marketed right or wasn't done right, whichever way. And as we speak, our goods are now moving to Australia, moving to Chile, Argentina, Dubai, Mauritius, and places like these, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, for that matter. Right? So we also have suddenly realized that this potential of this particular category is not forget Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. It's a phenomenon, at least for that phenomenon, at least, right? Africa, the whole of Africa. Why is it so hard to have a Bloody Mary at home? If you look at it, how difficult, everybody likes a drink.
Yeah.
It's just not available.
I find it surprising that it's not actually there anywhere else. And why do you think that is?
I think most of the culture of cocktails primarily came from North America. Right? It was the Americans who it's a common place to come back home and make yourself a margarita.
Yeah.
Men, women, both, right? Yeah. Having a Bloody Mary for lunch or Sunday brunch is a very common thing to do.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons that happened is that possibly the manufacturing of it is very expensive in North America. So by the time you actually put it out anywhere in the world, it's just too expensive. One of the things I also did different, which I think is working for us, is that there were some brands in India available, imported from possibly America itself, but they were all coming in really large bottles, right? So if I want to have one drink, now when you go to a bar, you have a drink or two, right? You're not going to have 15 drinks. Most of these bottles come in a 1 liter pack and claim to make 15 drinks, 30 drinks or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, why would I want to? And there is absolutely no way for me to use it. Right?
Yeah.
So one of the first things we did was we make the pack size smaller.
Makes
One
sense.
or two. In fact, we did a little research before we started. And we asked people, do you want one drink or two drinks in a pack size? Everybody said two. So we said, you want one drink at 50 rupees or two drinks at 100 rupees? Everybody said two drinks at 100 rupees. So that's how we launched. We just changed the price from 100 to 99. That's another marketing story.
That's actually, since you mentioned marketing as well, how has this played through to how you market to your consumer as well? Just in terms of, I also feel that the audience now, I think a couple of pieces I'm taking from what you just said, right, is that one is because of the fact that if you go beyond the metros, people want access to the ingredients, but don't necessarily have the access yet. But D2C's open that up. But even then, to be able to get that same experience, no matter where you are, is one key piece. But also the piece is that at some point, I don't think the consumer in any of the other cities also wants to seem like they're in any way a different consumer from the metro. They kind of, everyone feels they're equal to that. So how does that play into how you market to them and how you connect with them?
A more related answer to your previous question also is that thing that really surprised us. That when we started, we launched in September of 2019. When I say launched, we were operating in a few stores close to my house.
Yeah.
And gearing ourselves to launch around April of 2020. So, just 4-5 months, just get the product right, get everything right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, March of 2020, lockdowns happened.
Yeah.
And then we were screwed. What the hell? Where do we go from here? But we launched a website and we went D2C and all that story, right? But therein lied a big problem because, and this is something which really was different from my belief. I assumed that initial adoption would happen during gatherings. Like when you go to your friend's house or I go to my friend's house or Diwali or Holi or social gatherings, which are also high consumption periods.
Yeah.
Where drinking, when you go to somebody's house, drinking goes up, right? Fortunately, we are yet to see a high consumption because since then, it's been COVID lockdown.
Yeah.
Which was some of our biggest challenges that, are consumers in India willing to adopt it to themselves? Just for myself, right? Because if you're not part of an entertaining group, it's not that evening that you've gone for.
Yeah.
We've served over 1 million cocktails to India since then. And at least a simple inference we can make is people are not doing because people are maintaining social distance. So these are 1 million consumers who are probably consuming it for themselves.
Wow.
So that was a big insight that people actually just are happy to do it. And we know that once the markets open up and you start meeting more people, the volumes will go up. But as of now, what's more heartening is that people have been consuming it for themselves.
And that's an interesting trend, right? If you look at it, because I wouldn't have assumed that as well, which would have been one of my questions.
That is something we also thought that we reached 3 years hence. Like when enough people have experimented and found out this brand during, we also tend to splurge a little bit more. So when there's somebody coming to your house, you don't mind buying a few extra things. You'll ensure, okay, I'll get my Absolute, I'll get my Johnny Walker, or I'll get my Glenfiddich, or whatever is your repertoire brand. You'll try to at least have a full portfolio.
Yeah.
And you'll get your Schweppes and a gin and etc. We wanted to be just part of that mix. So as long as we are part of that whole set of things that happens, people will consume it, and then there'll be X% of people who will like it enough to make it their go-to drink. But those occasions never happened in the last 1.5 years. I mean, the number of times the social gatherings, we've all been locked at home. Right? But we have grown obviously very fast. And then that was heartening to see. And this is somewhere we wanted to reach 3 years from now. But if people so that's a surprise us that we are still, people are ready to adopt it for themselves as a single person, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, at home for themselves.
A few more things to talk about. Actually, not just a few, a lot more things to talk about. But before we do that, we need to get into a small break and we'll be right back after that.
Do check out our new show, Tech Life at Intuit, hosted by Sheila Aditya Mukhopadhyay. Sheila Aditya talked to Anshu Verma, Vice President and Fellow Engineer, and Manish Shah, Distinguished Engineer, Tech Futures at Intuit. They talk about Intuit's employee-powered approach that has won them many accolades and tons more. Here's what they say about evolving and innovating as a company.
We are a 35-plus-year-old company, right? Like we have software, and everybody knows that software gets dated as things actually move. Yeah. But we have to constantly evolve, and our tech stack is like as modern as it can get, and obviously continuously evolving. Now, one of the things that we realized about 6-7 years ago that we have to get agility and nimbleness and drive velocity in how we actually build our products. We need to sort of unlock innovation so that every engineer can actually do it.
Catch new episodes of Tech Life at Intuit every Wednesday on the IBM Podcast app, website, or wherever else you get your podcasts from.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead with Akash. Do you see this primarily pandemic driven, or it's almost like this is something which would have always been there, just that you never saw it as something that people would do? Or
People often ask me that did the pandemic help you or not? I still don't have a right answer. Because on one hand, the number of opportunities to sell and lockdowns obviously hamper us, because if the retail shops shut down in Bombay, where do we sell? Or if people are not meeting each other, so the number of occasions are less. Diwali didn't go as, last year Diwali, I don't know if wave 3 comes, if Diwali will still go the way. Holi didn't happen. New Year. Now, New Year is a time where I know that we'll just get wiped out from shelves.
Yeah.
But if New Year has to be the way New Year was in 2016, 2017, 2018, right, where you know that something is happening with something. On the other hand, bars were shut. So we took an opportunity, and I always believe that, and that's an insight for smaller brands, smaller startups, that use one simple insight and one singular thought and just go hammer and tong after that. So the moment we heard the bars are shut, our ads started popping up on feeds saying bring the bar home. Single line, and that was not thought of before. Before, all about get the party this, party that. Right? Because we're trying to, or celebratory occasion, we're trying to sort of market to that occasion. But the day the bars got shut and website went live, I think we haven't stopped saying bring the bar home since that day, even till now, every day. Because that was the moment we wanted to basically tell the consumer that, there is an opportunity for you to get that product home. And I think it immediately makes a connect with the category, with the product, everything. Yeah.
Do you also see this as having, and how much of this do have you seen as being people who don't necessarily drink alcohol, who just purchase it because it's also a good thing to have as a mocktail as well? Have you guys kind of tracked some of that part, or is that not? Is that data they still haven't been able to get?
Actually, the real definition of strategy. Strategy is a very misused word. A lot of people will say that this is my strategy. The actual definition of strategy is only your ability to make a choice. Which means you got to let go of something and keep something. And that is the only crux of a strategy. Like, you have two directions. Your strategy is you're going to go left or right. And that's about it in business. We had a choice to position ourselves as a cocktail or a mocktail. We chose cocktail. And people can have it. We would love people to drink it. And we try more and more to ensure that, the new products, I don't know if you've tried the Bloody Mary yet or
I haven't. Not the new ones.
Please do. Yeah. We've tried to make it so that, they taste brilliant in themselves. But that is not how we communicate. That is not how we market the brand. Because the moment we start doing that, if you're saying advertising is dead, most of the reason is, such reasons is because, consumers are confused. There is just so much content, so much media, so much communication, right? If you want to stand for something, you have to be very, very sharp about it.
I think that's an interesting point, right? Because it also kind of latches on the fact that if you're getting it by virtue of someone just buying it and knowing there's no alcohol and drinking it, that's fine. But once you start marketing to it, you actually dilute the other part of what you're primarily focusing on, which is the consumer who wants to buy it for a cocktail. I think that's a very valid point. And I think the dilution is, like you said, can actually kill the larger strategy. Since we use that word, I'm using that again. I want to take a step back, just talking through your journey as well. Right? So I'd love to start from saying, how did you kind of start off and what led you to this point? And do a little bit of a, I don't know if flashback is the right word, but I'm just going to go with that. And just want to understand how, because I always believe that there are many pieces you get along your career which help you build companies. And I feel that I want to understand what all those are.
No, you're absolutely right. So I started I was always part of the marketing team, brand management, so call it. I started my career with mobile phones, Motorola mobile phones. This was a time in, I think, 2003, when there was only one brand called Nokia, and then there were lots of small brands, Motorola being one of them, Motorola, LG, Samsung, Sony, Ericsson. I don't know if you know that phase. But so there were some interesting times, and, I learned a lot from the team who had just come. We launched a phone called the Razr in those days, which became pretty popular. And some insights learned again on advertising and marketing, that just by pricing it cheaper, how you can destroy the brand. So, one of the things I learned was that Razr, at that time, we could have launched for 18,000 rupees. But then my boss, Pramit, he said, make it the most expensive phone. And people will line up to buy you. At that time, the most expensive phone was a Nokia communicator for 36,000 rupees. Razr was launched at 40,000 rupees. Razr had a wait list. Like it took 3 months for you to get your hands on at 40,000 rupees. Then after I left, I know the management changed and they came and they said, okay, now let's price it down and make it big. So they brought it back to 18,000 rupees and the product never sold after that.
Took away the premiumness of it.
It's a myth. Premiumness, and in our case right now, it's actually reversed, but I'll come to that. Then I started my own e-commerce venture called Men's XP. So, a lot of the learnings that I had over time, what worked, what doesn't work, the ability to use content right. Men's XP was basically built on content. It's even now.
Yeah.
To use content right, content sharply. My journey to liquor marketing. After I left liquor, I was in Bangalore heading marketing for electric car company. From where I went to Bombay to work closely with Anand Mahindra to launch the new Thar. So a diverse set of stuff done in my life.
Yeah.
But as I say, once you work in alcohol, you always want to go back. So I wanted to come back. But I knew that, this whole alcohol marketing products are so stuck in this dark world. Right? There has to be a way to sort of bring it out of it.
Yeah.
So enjoy the fun and the speed of alcohol and the consumer acceptance of it. But stay away from the route to market challenges.
Yeah.
And the concept of Jimmy's came out of that. Primarily.
And when you look at it even from the kind of, especially as you switch to selling through a website, etc., all that stuff, did you see that the kind of team you built as well having changed in terms of what you'd want it to be around and just like how you function as well?
Not really. I think one of the things I did smart, and I think that's one of the lessons possibly for all this thing, that be very clear about what you are good at and what you're not good at.
Yeah.
Okay, so FMCG sales is something I had not done because I was part of a different trade.
Yeah.
The liquor sales is a different channel altogether.
Yeah.
Selling in a Nature's Basket and the traditional HUL or Marico type models where you would sell to a distributor sells to retail and so on and so forth is a different channel. So I started looking at myself and realized that, while I know most of the aspects of this business, this whole retail madness is going to be, it's a nightmare and I can't do it. Right? I will not be able to manage it myself. If this needs to be brand, if I had all the years and time in my life, I could have done it. Then I went on, from the store that realized, which is the biggest premium non-alcoholic beverage in India. That brand came to me as Red Bull. I went on LinkedIn and found, who's the guy who's good at selling Red Bull in India? The regional sales head of Red Bull I found out his number. He happened to live close to my place, ironically. Today he's sitting in the other room as my co-founder. So I think what I did, other than, scaling, was that I plugged the gaps. The moment we reach a certain scale, we realize that, our products also need to improve. So the journey of improving the product, I think I mentioned last time, is you will never get everything right the first time. If you remember the old story of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, we all love Steve Jobs. There's a method to his madness too. But Steve was very focused on getting it right.
Yeah.
Bill Gates, I want to be in market and I will fix it along the way. And, you can still, the world debate on which is the right way still exists.
Yeah.
Nobody can say was Bill Gates right or was Steve Jobs way right.
Both of them are right. It just depends on which one worked, I guess.
Yeah. So in this route, we took the Bill Gates sort of route, where we said, we will improve our product. We will make it better along the journey. Let's be in the market now, right? More recently, we've just onboarded India's best mixologist, Yandu Plama. I don't know if that story came across to you somehow.
Yeah.
But so there is a bar in Delhi called Sidecar. The head bartender of that. And so there is only one number one mixologist in India. And after that, there are awesome bartenders. There's a guy called Yandu Plama. His bar just won among the top 100 bars in the world, top 15 in Asia, so on and so forth. That's the first time that ever happened for an Indian bar to be given that award. We onboarded him as a head of product, right? So that even for us to now, our journey to deliver you the best quality cocktail by simply mixing alcohol still continues. It will continue till a certain time. And, we just had a few products. Now we're coming up with more martinis and gin-based flavors. If everybody's having gin and tonic, some may want to have something else sometime. Right? Because again, so we don't play in the tonic space for various business reasons. But what we're trying to launch a few products appealing to the gin consumer, because again, it's a simple insight is that is a gin consumer only wanting to have a tonic or GNT?
No, not necessarily.
Or does he like gin that he may want to have a variety? Can 10-20%. So if I'm the only one having the variety, then 20% of all gin consumers in India is having a product. So these are the kind of insights we sit in these little rooms here and keep thinking all day long. How would people drink in India? It's not a bad job if you look at it that way.
Not at all. Not a bad job at all, if you ask me. One of the things you mentioned a little earlier was when the term premium came up, right? And you said it kind of look at it differently from your end. I'd love to kind of bring that point back because you mentioned that, and I'd love to know what you meant.
Okay, it's funny. So Jimmy's is not a premium brand. Jimmy's is actually a value for money brand. However, the most expensive. You have to see that, understand that. So most brands, let's say, I'll take a few new brands that have come. You may have heard of Swami. You must have heard of Sepoy and other such brands that have come into the fray in this, right?
Yeah.
We're actually more expensive than all of them in terms of price point. They are all between 85 to 95 rupees. We're actually 99 rupees, right?
Yeah.
There has been a conscious attempt on our part, again, to not be luxurious. It's very simple to do, right? You have a nice bottle, fancy photo shoot, and you'll start looking the part.
Yeah.
I would rather be the value for money, warm, embraceful brand than the more expensive brand from Schweppes. So premium has to be used in a we're still premium in terms of a price point. But we are very, very, very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to be seen as an expensive brand. Yet price the highest.
That's an interesting point, right? And so, okay, let me ask you a question basis that. Is that more for how you... Do you think that makes consumers gravitate towards you more, or what do you think is the positive that comes out of doing that? If you had to pick it out.
Okay, I'll give you a brand that does it very well. Probably the best in the world. It's Absolut. Absolut doesn't play the Grey Goose game, or you'll probably even find that even a Johnny Walker is slightly more luxurious. Chivas is more luxurious, right? Absolut doesn't ever say that I'm a luxury brand. It has no cues in its communication. It's but it's a premium brand.
Yeah.
You never think of it as a cheap brand, right?
That's true.
Exactly. So, that's the space we are nowhere close to it, and I don't think ever be. But I think somewhere, and these are all very, back of the mind cues. It's very hard to develop, but a small inputs that you do take you towards in that direction.
Yeah.
So which is why Absolut has now become, for most of us, go-to vodka brand. So if you think of a vodka brand, Grey Goose is too expensive.
Yeah.
Possibly Smirnoff, but you can afford more. You'll probably go to an Absolut. It's as simple as that. And you think that these are just there, but these are cues built, thought through over time. Where you don't want to be seen as a luxury brand. A lot of the tonic brands are now seen as more expensive to Schweppes. So you're saying that I am a luxury consumer because I can afford to buy something, because Schweppes is a great brand.
Yeah.
So Schweppes is a good example also, right? But I'm paying more because I can afford more. Right? In our case, it's opposite. You can have, the last time you had a cocktail in a bar was 400 to 500 rupees. You say you can make two from 200.
Correct. I think that's a great value point. It's almost like how you communicate value. When you normally say value for money, you always feel it means just a cost metric. But in many ways, it's just that this is how much you would normally pay if you went out and did this. How much you'll pay. I think that's another great way to kind of show how you're getting more value for a certain amount of money, and in some ways doesn't even bring up comparisons in that sense, which I think is also kind of works for you. Doesn't necessarily compare you with X and Y, just says, okay, this is what I'm getting out of it. It's also appeals to me because of the way it is, and then you can just bring it home.
Yeah. Also, if you look at your own way, if you go shopping, we're all impulse shoppers. Right? We all think that we make the smartest decisions while going shopping.
Yeah.
But end of the day, if you're buying from Big Basket, or you're walking the aisles of Nature's Basket, or whichever basket that you're choosing from, right? We all buy under impulse, and people put a lot of information on the back label, right? I don't know how many people actually look at it. We think we look at it, right? We just want to be, so there's another insight that I have, it's like there are a lot of brands which came to India positioned as no sugar brands, zero sugar, this thing, right? You haven't even heard of them. They disappeared. Because we like to believe that we want healthy drinks. We like to believe that we want zero sugar drinks, but we will not compromise. And I'm talking about Indians mostly. We will not compromise on flavor. If it doesn't taste good, no matter what health benefit you can slap on it, right? You are not going to touch it.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, Indians are delivered, we like our gulab jamuns and jalebis, right? Regardless of the, health thing. So you have to understand who we are first, right? We are not willing to compromise on flavor, either on food or beverage or for anything.
Yeah.
If it comes with a healthy tag, awesome. But a lot of brands have made the mistake in India is that, they come with zero everything. Zero sugar, zero this thing, zero this thing. But you know what? That's easy to say. But end of the day, when you go that way, there is no flavor in what you're selling. Nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question because I feel that at one point, in many ways, you found that gap in the market that you saw as an opportunity. If I was an entrepreneur starting off today, and I almost had to ask you what are the key things I should kind of look at as guardrails to find a gap in a market which I'm interested in, what would those be?
Yeah, India has so many people. There are opportunities dime a dozen. Now, now that I have a established setup, I have a 50 people team, right? I have more time than I had used to have at the same time last year. I have 5 more ideas roaming in my head. But one of the things I've realized is that, and I made that mistake. I made that mistake for the last 8 odd years when I was in Spirits, searching for finding that idea, that need gap that nobody's ever done before. I was wrong. Don't look for what nobody has done before. Look for what is being done. Do it better. Because all the big things that can also happen are already happening. Just find a new way of doing the same thing, right? Because all of us think, let's find something which nobody is doing. Maybe nobody is doing it because there's a reason it should not be done also, right? There are enough and more ideas in India which you can take and remodel it, repackage it to make it in that sense. So I would only advise younger entrepreneurs is don't look for that, wow, the Eureka moment when you find something that nobody has ever done it. Look at what people are doing.
Most things have already been done in that sense.
Mostly, I'm sure you'll find something, but will it have scale enough? Second thing, anything that you do from day one, always imagine that if everything goes right and 10 years in, can this be the size of the business you wanted to? Because you may succeed or fail, but the category itself needs to have inherent scale. Right? So like when we looked at this category, people told me that, cocktails, fine, few people will drink it, so on and so forth. So we did a $1 million of business in our first year, which is ahead of the first year of Bira, first year of Raw Pressery, first year of Paper Boat, right? And we clocked 0.03% of category share, which means all spirits, premium spirits, had consumed in India, 0.03% were consumed with Jimmy's. Right? So we have a way to calculate that. At 0.4%, we will grow 200 times than what we are right.
Oh, wow.
So while in the front face of it, it seems like this boutique sort of a play, South Bombay, it's actually not. There was hard, deep-rooted numbers and category that if everything goes best, another way of looking at it. Let's assume that Varun likes to have, among the 10 drinks you consume at home, I'm assuming Varun you drink sometimes. Okay. So among the 10 times you drink at home, your every 10 drinks, every 10th drink is a Bloody Mary at home. On a Sunday afternoon, sitting in your balcony or wherever, you want to have a Bloody Mary. Okay. That sounds simple enough. You possibly can see yourself doing that. Another way of looking at it is that means 10% of all spirits consumed in India are being consumed with Jimmy's. So that's how you sort of, when you financially model these things at the back end, that's how you sort of look at it. How big can this should be?
That's a great way to look at it. Just from the fact that it's not, you're not seeing that it's only one day amongst, or one drink amongst all these. You're saying it's that percentage. And when you look at the percentage and just scale it out, then there's so much more than coming. That actually makes.
We work on only percentage of total drinking happening in India, and we want to be an X% of that. And now it doesn't matter you drink whiskey, vodka, rum, because we obviously are presenting you with the entire something.
You have something to combine any of those spirits with, so that makes total sense.
Gin not yet, but soon launching a few.
No, that's nice. Predominantly these days a gin drinker. So.
We saw that happen. Still very small. Again, you think, gin is still 3% of the total spirits consumption.
India is still a whiskey drinking country in that sense, right?
Vodka, rum combined is 90% of all drinking, which is another reason why we didn't go for a tonic, because the absolute number, while it sounds romantic, in GNT everybody's having it, but everybody happens to be you and your friends. And you and your friends actually not even combined like 0.1% of India.
Of course.
Is that the right people to target, or let's do a good old whiskey sour? Because the pool is so big. Even a small dip from that is bigger than what gin can ever be. So I think, and these kind of formulas work in all categories, right? Don't see a trend and just sort of move with the flow. Great, everyone's having gin tonic. In my time in the last 2 years, I know about 11 new tonic brands that have come. Right? Because why? Because hey, Varun is drinking gin and tonic. My friend is drinking gin and tonic. Let's launch a tonic. And maybe it's a great place to be and it's easy to make or whatever it is. And there's some brands doing very well, right? My respect to them. But I don't think a lot of them will take the trouble to really deep dive and understand how big this actually is, because there is a surety sitting there, half your price, right? And then now there's fever trees and all coming from abroad.
Yeah.
So do you really want to play in the mix so much?
And so do you, because as competition, when there's too much competition in a smaller percentage of the market, then that becomes a problem for just like sustaining yourself, but also being able to find any form of scale in that sense. So you'd rather play in the bigger pool.
Simple thumb rule for any startup is, if everything goes right, where would your business be in 10 years? And that number you should have in mind. Let's say everything you planned, all your hypotheses, every execution was spot on, bang on. You did the best you could and nobody could match you. If in 10 years you're not seeing that number to be big enough, then there is something wrong with your business model to begin.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is no inherent scale in what you're doing.
That's true.
So unless you don't have that vision. So that is something I think one of the things people, so don't hunt for the opportunity that, this nobody's doing that, let me do that. Because you will burn yourself. At the end of the day, Varun, you and I, whatever we do, we have 24 hours in a day and we have to sleep for 8 of them and do something else for 2 hours. So we get about 12 odd hours to do. Even Jeff Bezos, you, me, all of us have about 12 hours in a day. Something that he's doing, and you're doing, and I'm doing. There is a difference in scale.
Of course.
Right? So that's something that keeps in my mind. Now I'm thinking, why am I doing this?
As we come towards the end of every episode, and I'm intrigued to know your answer to this. I ask all my guests this question. I ask them, apart from work, apart from what you do, what do you spend a lot of time doing? What do you spend a lot of time just focusing on doing? Could be consuming something, but what's your out of work activity?
I play a bit of squash, and I have a 7-year-old at home. So I don't think he's capable of giving me any free time. So he takes most of my time. But instead of that, one of the things I remember from our last conversation, which I wanted to end with, is I was very intrigued by the topic of your blog, and I wanted to in fact ask you, why do you name it called Advertising is Dead? What prompted you to do it?
So when we started the show, one of the prime reasons was, I started a company that became an agency. Right. So we started a company called Glitch in 2009, and it became we started a production house because that's what we came from. I came from a music channel background. My co-founder as well from the same background. So eventually,
Glitch is yours.
Glitch is ours, yeah. And at some point midway through,
let's connect again.
Yes, for sure. We'll have a chat. And somewhere midway through, became an agency. So when I got the opportunity to host this podcast, we said, okay, what is it going to be about? And I said that I don't know. I have no legacy when it comes to advertising. Like I've not studied it. I've not worked in that space. Became an agency by virtue of a company that you built, became that. So I said, I can talk about the changes that have happened. So, and most of the changes I've seen is that a lot of what used to be prevalent even 10 years ago has kind of, there's many parts that have died, many parts that have almost reinvented themselves, and many new pieces that have come in. So I said there's a lot of stuff that's died, and that's where the name kind of started off from, saying advertising is dead, but it's a whole new thing right now. Many old pieces are still there, but it's no longer the same organism. That's where the name kind of came from. So almost the reinvention. I love
the name, and I think I remember mentioning also last time was that it's not that advertising is dead. It's the 5 P's that are still prevalent, and each of the P is advertising. Your pricing is your advertising, your packaging is your advertising, your promotion of course is advertising, where you place it on shelves.
Yeah.
A lot of the work we do is also where on a shelf you're placed. That is advertising, because if you're placed in a shelf where the juice is kept, then you advertise saying that your juice. But if you place yourself next to tonic and other such Schweppes, right? Then you are something to be mixed with. So where you place is equally important. So I think somewhere the world is starting to forget that that it's not about advertising only per se. But I'm a big fan of your work, by the way. I love some of the work that Glitch does.
Awesome. That's good to know.
First, please, if you're looking for an agency, it's Glitch.
Okay, now, there are a few questions I always ask, which have not changed in years. And I'm going to ask you those as well. What can you put together in an instant?
Okay.
It's like I almost gave you like this. I kind of expected this answer. I'm like, this is going to be the... anything that you've watched, read, or listened to recently that you'd recommend?
I'm watching Game of Thrones again, and I'm loving it even more.
That's
first time just went out in a breeze.
Yeah.
But now that I'm watching it again, I'm like, there's so much more deeper than what it meets you. I think that's a good insight. Sometimes reading a book again, second time, makes you see it in a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
It's like I like to read things again, watch things again sometimes, because you get to, the fluff goes away and you see it in a more deeper light.
My question to you was going to be why will advertising not die? But I think you already gave me that answer, so I'm going to let that one be.
Yeah.
Thanks a ton, Ankur. Thanks for doing this. It's been a fabulous chat. I have a bunch of learnings from this, and I'm happy we got to have this chat.
Perfect, Varun. I'm so glad I was here. Yeah. Thank you all.
Thanks a ton.
Bye.
Thanks, Ankur. If you like this podcast and you want to listen to more podcasts like this, head over to the IVM Podcast website or app, or wherever you get your podcast from, and look at all the podcasts that IVM makes. There's some really fun stuff there.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, Chunky Pandey brings the nostalgia for the 90s while sharing his journey as an actor. We'd like to welcome Audiogan to the network. It's an old show about design. We want to kick off this season with Jay Datta, design head at Make My Trip and Go Ivy Bo. He's also the founder of Design Up. On The Habit Coach, get to know more about human mind and curiosity. On This Round is On Me, we dive deep into the electric vehicles and what the cars of the future are going to look like. On The Wire Talks, a fascinating conversation on why the poet Kabir is not only significant but relevant to our times. And on Advertising is Dead, let's understand internet culture, meme marketing, and lots more. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any other show for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to spread the word about a podcast you love. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week: See It, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit India, and CoinSwitch Kuber.
A wise man once said, traveling, it makes you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller.
Well, listen to such travel stories and experiences exploring India on the Musafir Stories with us, Saif and Faiza.
Catch us on the IVM website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
From uncensored and unfiltered chats with the who's who of the entertainment industry, I, Siddharth Kannan, bring your very heartcake chat show called Candid Kannan. Tune in every Friday on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.